Hello and welcome to Tiny Blue Games. I, of course, am Seesaw, or Chris if you prefer, and today we are talking about WIldstar and its classes. Now, originally, I planned on making builds for the classes and releasing them sort of in the beta. If you wanted a tank build or a DPS build. Now, I'm going to have to postpone that as that you don't get all the abilities and all the amps throughout the beta, and it's probably going to be more useful if I wait until all those are unlocked. Now, that being said, the Engineer build for tanking and for PvP, as well as the Esper build that we've already released, are useful builds. They're simply useful at lower levels, as you will get better skills that will be unlocked and making, different combinations available to you. So, with that out of the way, I would now like to talk about the engineer as a whole. And I think I'm going to do that for each and every WildStar class, sort of give a sort of feature video on each one with our thoughts, with what they can do, their tanking, their healing, their DPS, what kind of skills you get, what kind of skills are great to use, and just overall how much fun they are. I feel like this is going to help most people in their decision with what class to make at the start of the game, and that's really where I want to go with these videos. So, without further ado, we will look at the engineer. So, just taking a closer look in, you see that we have a rifle, which is a pretty cool weapon to be using. There's a lot of different sizes and different looks for them. We have heavy armor, which is a very unique thing to WildStar and to the Engineer, as not many classes ever get to use long-range weapons as well as have heavy armor. And that was sort of one of the things that attracted me to them at the start. You can see down there that we have our fancy little bot friend who does our bidding for us. And that's also a uniqueness to this class for WildStar, is there's no other real class that gets pets. And I feel like every game sort of needs a pet class because there's the person who's just gonna love dancing around with his little adorable bot. I mean, who doesn't think this is adorable? Um, so what else does the engineer bring to the table? Well, we have our tankiness and are sort of anchored to the ground. We do long range DPS feel to us. We can go into a map or a battleground and we can sort of stand to the side. We can pop on our armor suit and just give it to the enemy. Just launch everything we have, nuke them down. And it's a great class for that. If you're firefight over a flag, great class to fight with. You've got the AoE damage as well as single target damage. You've got the survivability with your suit and with your movements. You're not only anchored down with the engineer, but you also have a bunch of sort of movement abilities, such as the jump away right here. That obviously on the moon gets a lot more distance and altitude, but it's handy because it snares and it gets you away, and it gives a whole new feeling to the engineer when you want it to. You can have the mobility that other classes have, but you also can have these sort of very tanky, slow damage tank that you want as well of the class. So, that being said, we're going to take a look at the DPS abilities and spec, and we're going to take a look at the tanking spec, and we're just going to do a quick overview of each of them. So we start by looking at our engineer in War of the Wilds in a DPS spec at the moment. It's great because we get to see some single-person fights as well as multiple opponents. I like to open my fight with the energy augur on the ground, as well as my bot's barrage ability on the ground. With those stacked, I can electrocute over top of it to really bump up my DPS for a moment. It's great because that's great for single target enemies, as you're seeing here. It's a great way to start the fight with the energy augur, as you can sort of charge it up while you're walking in, because it does have a cast time, but you can move while you're using it. Like I was saying, it's great for the single target as well as the multiple enemies, as they're all AoE attacks, and very much so fields. The two of them are the straight line telegraphs, which go great together, and then you sort of have a circular one, just sort of encompass the entire area if you can. You'll note that it's a great DPS build in the sense that it's not got a lot of complicatedness to it. Like, here's some more AoE sort of damage here. You notice that I use a lot of my attacks in a straight line, so I like to sort of position myself in a way that I get as many people in that straight line telegraph as possible. There was the energy gear, and then the electrocute over top of that with my suit popped really pushes out the DPS. When they start charging me, I use my urgent withdrawal sort of to snare them, do some great DPS actually with it, and to get that jump back that is essential for, um, surviving. You notice here that I'm able to take down a few of the actual player, well, not they're not players, but the elites on the other side, um, because it's really handy to have the electrocute as a finisher, especially in PvP and in this, as it's high damage and you can run while using it. So it's very good for that closing attack, the closing kill, and it makes the engineer very deadly when in a chase. Because a lot of attacks that other people might have will force them to sort of stop and attack you or something like that. Whereas the engineer has that as long as they have vitality, they can attack pretty well on the run. And popping their suit will give them the extra vitality they need in a urgent situation. You notice here that for adventures and dungeons, oftentimes mobs like to line up in a straight line if you find the right angle, and that's how you're going to push out the optimum DPS. Be sure to use your bot's barrage ability whenever off cooldown on your mobs, because it does add to the combo of the AoE damage you're going to be putting out. And then you have your burst skill whenever you get a crit, which just ramps it up a bit more. I wouldn't interrupt cast times. It's set for like electrocute for the burst skill, as you do have a few seconds to make use of it. So we're going to go move in right to PvP, and we see that we're on a flag right here. Now, this is perfect for the build we're going with right now, as we have a lot of AoE damage that we can place on that field, such as the Energy Augur and the Barrage skill. We're able to keep a lot of damage on the enemies surrounding our flag, as well as keeping distance because they're not really focused on us at the moment. The one unfortunate thing about the PvP for the engineer is that our bots are sometimes killed off. I mean, the spawn time for them is not very high, so it's not a huge deal. And the bots are kind of a very big asset in the sense that a lot of people don't think to attack the bots, as that will take, them away from DPSing actual players. So the bots usually get a good few attacks out before anyone even cares about them. And the barrage does a lot of damage, and even when upgraded is able to snare, or I believe it might be just slow movement speed, which will be great for these large AoE fights. If you could just put that on top of the flag and then rain down your AoE into a slow field, you're gonna really do some damage, as you see here. I like to sort of do the setup where I put the Energy Augur down as it's the longest cast time. I then put down my barrage as it is instant, and then I go into my suit and do electrocute on top of that, and that's great. Especially if you throw a stun down on right before all that, you're gonna really just take down the playfield. And actually, when you do that, they're probably gonna start attacking you. That's when you use your urgent withdrawal and put some distance and some snares on them. Ultimately, you're pretty survivable in PvP too, which comes with the whole heavy armor. So this puts a whole new spin on the ranged class, as you're not a glass cannon by any means. You're going to be able to take quite a few hits before you even get concerned. So it gives you kind of two different styles to play with, as you can be sort of a tank, but also be someone who can really pop out the DPS. And it's very unexpected for people who are fighting the engineer. A, they're expecting you to be super squishy, or B, they're expecting you to do no damage. And you can kind of alternate between them, and it's a very interesting playstyle. See, here we see I'm going to be able to nuke down the flag carrier pretty well. You see the urgent withdrawal is a great thing for flag carriers, as you can sort of snare them down while you're attacking them. It's a great skill to have when you're just chasing someone, as you can sort of do a quick spin and just put a snare on them. It's a very light, quick, easy to use skill. It's got not a lot of like complications with it, which is what I really love. You see here I do another quick flag takedown. I get sort of knocked down right off the bat, but I'm going to come right back up. I use my stun, but then I get stunned, of course. We're charging in, and I do have friends here, so I put down the Energy Augur to get some damage and dots on everyone, and then I use the Electrocute afterwards. I come onto the flag and then I do the urgent withdrawal on top of it to snare them there and to root them and do the damage. And that's sort of what you can do in the PvP. We finally move on to our engineer tank build. This is obviously a video we've already had on the channel, and if you want to check out just an engineer tank build, be sure to follow the link. However, I just want to take a look at some of the skills you get to use. You have the your number one ability, which has got a very open telegraph and is great for rounding up mobs. Unsteady miasma is one of my favorite tanking things that the engineer brings to the table, as it puts blunder on all the enemies in the circle telegraph that it'll have around it, which will make it so that they have a greater, I think it's like 32, it scales with level, but like a 30 something percent chance of deflecting when they attack you, which is really fun for the engineer tank. The second thing they bring to the table that's pretty unique is their bot, Bruiser bot, who really helps for sort of like high damage fights like this one right here. I like to use my taunt or my stun to sort of take damage off me for a bit. And then I also give Bruiser Bot, I let him taunt them and take sort of about 5 seconds of damage away from them doing it to me. He might die, but it's a great thing for the healer to have time to catch up on his heals, especially in these high intensity fights, because these guys do a lot of damage if you just sit there and take it. So it's very good to use everything you have available. It's also handy because you can heal your shield as well as other people's shields. With our number 2 ability here, which when upgraded actually makes your shield mitigation go up to 75%, which is something I'm looking to try in the future. We see here that the engineer tank is great as it has a lot of mobility while it's doing its taunts and tanks. Like you can do a lot of them on the move, and that adds a whole lot of you don't have to anchor yourself down too much to one spot when you're tanking. I mean, your healers probably enjoy it if you stay in their telegraphs, but you don't have to feel like you're limited to just standing there and casting endlessly. You have the ability to really move where you need to go to get out of the telegraphs, as well as keeping the aggro on your enemies as well as your boss. So here in our final clip, we take note of how good our stun actually is, in the sense that we can really stun the enemy quick once we're down. And it's a very handy stun, as it hits 5 people in a straight line once again. That's a big thing for the engineer as a class as a whole, is that as long as you can get people in a nice straight line for a lot of your telegraphs, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage, and B, you're going to be able to do a lot of stunning and CCs and all that. So this is pretty much it for our look at all 3 different aspects of the engineer, and then we'll wrap it up obviously with a nice conclusion here at the end on my final thoughts of the engineer. So we just do the stun there as you saw, and then you have the nice DPS after from your party. Well, so that's the engineer in a nutshell, really. Pros and cons. For pros, we really got the rifle, the heavy armor. So you've got the long range of the heavy armor, which I can't stress enough how cool that is. You've got your bots, which are just adorable, as well as very useful for healing your shield, for DPSing, for slowing, for tanking. I mean, it's really cool to have the ability to have your bot taunt off you every so often in a fight. As far as just regular abilities go, you have a large range of big telegraphs to small telegraphs that do a lot more damage. You have a lot of useful things in your abilities, such as like personal defense unit for the group or whatever. You've got your blinds, you've got slows, you've got your urgent withdrawal for some movements. You've got your stun, obviously. It's a class that I almost want to say is kind of a jack of all trades. Its cons though is probably it is not the most movement you can get in a class for sure. Like there's a lot more movement classes. It feels a bit anchored to the ground. You feel heavy, if that makes sense. And I guess that's kind of how they want the engineer to feel. And I'm okay with it though. You're a heavy ranged like tank. You take the shit and you give the shit out. And ultimately, it's been a very fun class to play with. I have no disappointment with this class so far. Really, I can't see why I wouldn't make this as one of my first few characters. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it useful, informative. Maybe you already knew all this about the engineer and you just wanted to hear it again or whatever. I don't know. But I hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, I hope you like the video. Leave me a comment about your thoughts on the engineer and how you think it will fit into the grand scheme of WIldstar. Be sure to subscribe for more, and stay tuned because I'm going to be doing one of these videos for each and every class, if I get my way, in the next few days here. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to like it. If you have a comment about it, or a suggestion for a future video, please leave one. If you have friends, share it. And finally, and most importantly, subscribe. Honestly, only one of these is red. Click it.